Every day, people hear things that don't feel completely true. A coworker gives an explanation that sounds slightly forced. A friend promises something, but their behavior feels off. Someone speaks confidently, yet something in their presence creates quiet doubt. Most people ignore that feeling because they cannot explain it clearly. But human behavior often reveals what words try to hide. Small movements, facial reactions, and shifts in posture expose internal tension. Stoic philosophy teaches the importance of observation, watching carefully before reacting. When you learn to read behavior calmly, you begin to see the difference between honest presence and hidden deception. If you value clear thinking and strong awareness of human nature, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This space is for people who want to sharpen their judgment and understand the deeper patterns behind everyday behavior. Number 1. The unsteady gaze. When someone speaks without full honesty, their eyes rarely stay steady. You can spot the shift in under 5 seconds. Pupils that dart sideways mid-sentence, a sudden break in contact followed by an overcompensating stare, or rapid blinking that exceeds the normal 18 times per minute. These movements are not deliberate tricks, but involuntary signs that the mind is carrying extra weight, fabricating details while monitoring your reaction at the same time. Stoicism teaches us that external appearances must be examined without attachment, exactly as Epictetus advised when he said we must test impressions before accepting them. By noticing this pattern calmly, you separate their discomfort from your own judgment, refusing to let their inner conflict become yours. This gaze instability stems from the brain's divided attention. One part maintains the false narrative while another scans for signs of disbelief, creating a cognitive load that the body cannot fully hide. In everyday life, this appears during negotiations, personal conversations, or even casual updates from friends. The eyes betray the effort required to sustain what is not true. Practicing Stoic observation here means you train yourself to register the signal without immediate emotional response, preserving your tranquility exactly as Marcus Aurelius practiced by focusing only on what is up to him. The result is a sharper mind that no longer wastes hours replaying doubtful exchanges. Watch specifically for the moment the gaze drops to the floor or flees to a distant point right after a key claim. That split-second escape is the body's attempt to reduce the anxiety of direct scrutiny. Stoics view such moments as gifts of clarity because they reveal the boundary between what another person controls and what you control, your interpretation. Once you see the pattern repeatedly, you stop investing trust where evidence shows none is warranted, freeing mental space for virtue and purpose instead. Applying this hack daily builds the discipline Marcus Aurelius described in his Meditations, the ability to look at things as they are, not as they pretend to be. You begin to notice how steady-eyed truth-tellers maintain comfortable contact, while the unsteady gaze flickers under pressure. This awareness does not make you suspicious of everyone. It simply returns your power to decide whom to rely on, protecting the inner citadel from manipulation. Over time, the practice itself becomes a form of self-mastery. The deeper benefit appears when you combine the observation with Stoic indifference to outcomes. You register the unsteady gaze, note the information, and then choose your response from reason rather than reaction. This prevents the quiet resentment that builds when deception goes unchallenged and keeps your emotional energy reserved for what truly matters, your own character and duties. In a world full of partial truths, this single skill restores a remarkable amount of personal peace. Finally, integrate the unsteady gaze check into your evening review, as the Stoics recommended. Ask yourself not whether you caught every liar, but whether you remained undisturbed by what you observed. Each consistent application strengthens the muscle of discernment, turning a subtle body signal into a lifelong guardian of your serenity and wisdom. Number 2. Face-touching gestures. Liars often touch their face unconsciously because the gesture provides momentary comfort while the mind works overtime. Within seconds you see a hand rising to cover the mouth, rub the nose, or scratch the cheek exactly when a sensitive detail is stated. This is not grooming, but a physical attempt to block the truth from escaping or to soothe the discomfort of falsehood. Stoicism reminds us that such external movements belong to the indifferent category, neither good nor bad, until our judgment assigns meaning. By calmly cataloging the gesture, you avoid being drawn into their emotional state and stay anchored in your own rational assessment. The hand-to-face pattern arises because lying activates the same stress response as physical threat, prompting self-soothing behaviors that evolved long before speech. In modern conversations, this shows up during explanations of delays, excuses about missed commitments, or stories meant to impress. Observing it without judgment aligns with Epictetus' teaching that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. You simply note the gesture as data, then decide how much weight to give the accompanying words. Look for the timing. The touch almost always coincides with the specific claim being tested. A quick mouth cover right after, "I was there the whole time," or a nose rub during, "I never received your message," reveals the precise point of strain. Stoics cultivate this precision of attention because it prevents vague unease from clouding their decisions. Once you recognize the pattern, you stop accepting surface explanations and begin requiring alignment between words, actions, and body. This awareness protects your relationships by replacing blind trust with informed discernment. You no longer invest time or resources based on partial information, which Marcus Aurelius would praise as living according to nature. The Stoic path here is never confrontation, but quiet adjustment of your own expectations, ensuring your peace remains intact regardless of another person's integrity. Over repeated encounters, the gesture becomes a reliable early warning that saves you from later disappointment. You learn to respond with the same measured calm Seneca described when facing adversity, acknowledging reality without amplifying it through anger or disappointment. The result is a life less interrupted by deception and more directed by your own deliberate choices. Make face-touch observation part of your Stoic morning preparation. Remind yourself that people's bodies speak louder than their rehearsed words, and commit to noting the signal without letting it disturb your inner equanimity. This daily discipline turns a fleeting gesture into a permanent advantage, reinforcing the freedom that comes from seeing clearly and acting wisely. Number 3. Defensive posture and fidgeting body movements. A liar's body often closes in on itself or refuses to stay still. Shoulders hunch forward, arms cross tightly, or feet begin shifting weight from side to side within moments of the questionable statement. These movements signal an unconscious desire to retreat from scrutiny or release nervous energy that the mind cannot contain. Stoicism classifies such physical displays as externals, irrelevant to our happiness unless we grant them power. Calm registration of the posture keeps you detached and focused on your own reasoned response. The defensive posture emerges because the body prepares for confrontation even when none is verbalized. Crossing arms creates a literal barrier, while fidgeting burns off the adrenaline that lying produces. In meetings, family discussions, or sales situations, you witness the shift immediately after a bold claim. The torso leans away, legs cross away from you, or fingers drum rapidly. Recognizing this allows you to adjust your trust level before more words complicate the picture. Stoics train themselves to read these signals the way Marcus Aurelius read the intentions behind actions, objectively and without personal offense. You note the closed posture not as proof of guilt, but as evidence that the speaker's composure is compromised. This information guides your next steps without requiring accusation, preserving both dignity and tranquility. Each time you observe the pattern, you reinforce the central Stoic truth that your inner state depends only on your judgments. By refusing to let someone else's fidgeting become your agitation, you practice the very discipline that leads to unshakable peace. The body language becomes a mirror reflecting their internal discord, while leaving your own center untouched. Long-term application turns defensive posture into a practical filter for relationships and opportunities. You invest less in people whose bodies consistently signal discomfort with truth, freeing energy for those whose posture remains open and aligned with their words. This selective engagement is Stoic prudence at work, choosing wisely where to direct your limited time and attention. Incorporate posture awareness into your Stoic journaling at day's end. Record instances where you notice the shift and chose stillness in response. Over weeks, this reflection builds the habit of effortless discernment, transforming a simple body cue into a cornerstone of your personal sovereignty. Number 4. Mismatched gestures between words and hands. When words claim confidence, but the hands tell a different story, deception is usually present. You see emphatic nodding paired with palms turned down, or a statement of agreement accompanied by shoulder shrugs that contradict the message. These incongruities appear in seconds because the body cannot lie as fluently as the tongue. Stoicism demands that we examine the whole impression, not isolated parts, exactly as the ancient teachers instructed when testing appearances against reality. The mismatch occurs because conscious speech can be rehearsed while unconscious gestures remain anchored in true emotion. During explanations or promises, the hands may sweep dismissively or remain limp even as the voice asserts certainty. Observing this split prevents you from being persuaded by tone alone and keeps your judgment grounded in the full picture presented. Epictetus would urge us to withhold assent until every element aligns. By calmly noting the contradiction, you practice the Stoic art of non-precipitate judgment, refusing to accept a story the body itself rejects. This skill protects you from commitments made on incomplete information and safeguards your resources of time and trust. Each instance of mismatch strengthens your ability to live by reason rather than appearance. You begin to value consistency across all channels of communication, which Marcus Aurelius identified as essential to a life of virtue. The result is fewer regrets and a growing reputation for clear-sighted reliability among those who know you. Applying the hack repeatedly cultivates a quiet confidence that others sense even if they cannot name it. People learn that your decisions rest on solid evidence rather than surface charm, which in turn attracts more honest interactions over time. Stoic practice here yields both personal peace and improved relationships. End each day by reviewing moments of gesture mismatch you noticed and the calm choices that followed. This reflection cements the habit, turning a subtle discrepancy into a lifelong tool for navigating human complexity with wisdom and serenity. Number 5. Fleeting micro-expressions of fear or contempt. The final seconds-long reveal comes through micro-expressions, brief flashes of fear, contempt, or disgust that cross the face before the polite mask returns. A half-second tightening around the eyes or a fleeting curl of the lip appears right after a critical statement and vanishes instantly. These involuntary signals expose the true emotion the speaker is working to suppress. Stoics treat such flashes as neutral data points, neither to be feared nor dramatized, but simply registered and weighed in our rational assessment. Micro-expressions last less than 1/5 of a second because the emotional brain reacts faster than the conscious mind can censor it. In conversations, you catch the contempt flicker when someone claims, "I completely understand," or the fear flash when they insist there's nothing to worry about. Training yourself to notice these requires only patient attention, the same attention the Stoics cultivated through daily self-examination. By cataloging the microflash without reaction, you embody Seneca's advice to remain undisturbed by external events. The expression informs your next action while leaving your composure intact, ensuring deception cannot hijack your peace. Over time, this sensitivity becomes second nature, protecting you from both manipulation and unnecessary conflict. The deeper Stoic value lies in using the information to refine your own character rather than to judge another's. You adjust expectations, set clearer boundaries, and allocate trust more precisely, all without descending into bitterness. This measured response is the hallmark of a mind governed by reason. Repeated practice across weeks transforms fleeting facial cues into reliable indicators that guide decisions in business, friendships, and family life. You move through the world with fewer illusions and greater freedom, exactly as the ancient philosophers intended. Close your Stoic practice each evening by recalling any micro-expressions you observed and the calm discernment that followed. This consistent reflection solidifies the entire set of body language skills, turning these simple observations into a comprehensive shield for your inner tranquility and a foundation for a life lived with unshakable wisdom. Number 6. Asymmetrical or forced smiles. When honesty flows naturally, smiles reach the eyes with even warmth on both sides of the face. A lie often produces an asymmetrical smile. One side lifts higher or faster, or a smile that stays only in the mouth while the eyes remain flat or narrowed. This mismatch appears within seconds because genuine emotion engages the orbicularis oculi muscles involuntarily, but fabricated ones rely on conscious control that cannot fully replicate symmetry. Stoicism calls us to examine impressions carefully, refusing to accept what the surface presents without scrutiny, much as Epictetus instructed us to question appearances before granting assent. By noting this asymmetry calmly, you avoid being swayed by false warmth and preserve your judgment for what truly aligns with reality. The forced smile arises from the effort to project reassurance or friendliness while internal conflict simmers. The brain prioritizes the verbal message, directing the zygomatic major muscle to pull the mouth corners up, yet it neglects or cannot fully activate the genuine eye-crinkling component. In conversations, whether a colleague downplays a mistake or a friend offers an excuse, the lopsided or mouth-only smile signals the extra labor required to sell the narrative. Observing this without reaction follows Marcus Aurelius's practice of seeing things stripped to their false coloring, allowing you to respond from reason rather than from the pull of apparent friendliness. Pay close attention to timing. The asymmetrical lift often emerges right after a claim meant to persuade or deflect, lasting just long enough to seem intentional, but betraying its artificial origin through lack of bilateral balance. Stoics value congruence in all things. When face and words fail to match, the discrepancy becomes clear data for decision-making. You register the signal, adjust your expectations accordingly, and move forward without resentment or overinvestment in the exchange. This awareness protects your tranquility by preventing the subtle disappointment that follows when charm proves hollow. You learn to value authentic expressions, those rare moments when a true smile lights both mouth and eyes, as markers of reliability, reserving deeper trust for those whose faces reflect inner harmony. Seneca would approve of this measured approach, acknowledging the cue, then choosing virtue over illusion. The practice itself cultivates patience and clarity in a world quick to offer surface pleasantries. Over repeated observations, the forced smile becomes a reliable filter that saves time and emotional energy. You invest less in interactions marked by facial incongruence, redirecting focus toward your own duties and character. This selective engagement embodies Stoic prudence, neither cynical suspicion nor naive acceptance, but reasoned discernment that keeps the mind undisturbed. Incorporate asymmetrical smile checks into your daily Stoic reflection. At evening review, note instances where you spotted the mismatch and chose calm adjustment over emotional entanglement. Consistent practice strengthens the habit, transforming a subtle facial cue into another tool for maintaining sovereignty over your perceptions and responses. Number 7. Throat clearing or swallowing patterns. Liars frequently clear their throats or swallow noticeably more often right after delivering a questionable statement. This happens in seconds because deception triggers autonomic nervous system responses, increased saliva production from anxiety or dryness from suppressed tension that the body attempts to manage instinctively. Stoicism teaches indifference to externals, yet sharp awareness of them when they reveal truth. By calmly cataloging these throat movements, you detach from the speaker's discomfort and remain centered in your own rational evaluation. The pattern stems from physiological stress. Lying elevates heart rate and cortisol, prompting the throat to tighten or produce excess moisture that feels obstructing. In everyday scenarios, explaining a missed deadline, recounting events selectively, or denying involvement, the extra swallow or clearing occurs precisely at the moment of highest cognitive strain. Epictetus urged testing every impression. Here, the throat signal serves as evidence that the impression may warrant closer examination without immediate acceptance. Observe the cluster. A single swallow might mean nothing, but repeated clearing combined with other cues points to internal friction. Stoics practice precision and attention, refusing vague hunches in favor of specific data. You note the timing without judgment, then decide how to proceed, perhaps by asking clarifying questions or simply withholding full assent, while keeping your equanimity intact. This cue guards against hasty trust that later breeds quiet frustration. You adjust boundaries early, preventing the drain of prolonged doubt or misplaced reliance. Marcus Aurelius emphasized living according to nature. Recognizing throat clearing as a natural bodily response to falsehood allows you to act in harmony with reality rather than against it. Long-term use of this observation refines your interactions, favoring those whose speech flows without such interruptions as indicators of ease and sincerity. The result is fewer entanglements born of deception and more space for pursuits that align with virtue. Seneca's counsel to remain undisturbed by what others do finds practical expression here. Note the signal, choose your response wisely, and preserve inner calm. Make throat pattern awareness part of your morning Stoic intention. Remind yourself that bodies speak when words falter, and commit to observing without letting the observation disturb your peace. Evening review reinforces this, turning a simple physiological cue into a steady ally in the lifelong practice of clear seeing and deliberate living. Number 8. Feet and lower body orientation. A person's feet often point toward the exit or away from you when deception is at play, even if the upper body faces forward in feigned engagement. This lower body betrayal appears almost immediately because feet remain less consciously controlled than face or torso during stressful interactions. Stoicism reminds us that true intentions reveal themselves in small, unguarded details. By calmly registering foot direction, you gain insight without emotional investment, staying anchored in what is up to you, your perception and choice. The orientation shift occurs instinctively. The body prepares for flight from scrutiny, directing energy toward escape even as the speaker maintains polite posture above. In meetings, casual talks, or confrontations, watch how feet angle outward or toward the door precisely after key assertion. This aligns with Epictetus' distinction between what belongs to others and what belongs to us. Their subconscious direction is theirs, but your clear reading of it is yours alone. Look for the incongruence. Words claim commitment, while feet signal withdrawal. Stoics train to see discrepancies without agitation, using them to inform prudent action rather than reactive judgment. You note the cue, recalibrate trust, and proceed with measured responses that protect your tranquility and resources. This hack prevents the slow erosion of peace that comes from ignoring subtle warnings. You avoid overcommitting to people whose bodies already show reluctance, freeing attention for more aligned connections. Marcus Aurelius practiced viewing others' actions objectively. Foot orientation becomes another objective fact that guides wise choices without descending into suspicion. Repeated application builds a quiet confidence in reading unspoken truths. You navigate social landscapes with fewer illusions, investing energy where openness is mutual. The Stoic benefit lies in freedom, less time entangled in partial truths, more directed toward personal growth and duty. End each day by reflecting on foot orientation observations and the calm decisions that followed. This journaling cements the skill, making lower body cues a reliable component of your Stoic toolkit for discerning reality amid human complexity. Number 9. Overly rigid or frozen posture. Liars sometimes adopt an unnaturally stiff posture, shoulders locked, torso immobile, minimal overall movement, within moments of stating something false. This rigidity counters the urge to fidget by overcompensating, but it stands out against natural fluid motion. Stoicism values seeing things as they are. A frozen body reveals effort to control what wants to leak, allowing you to observe dispassionately and decide without disturbance. The stiffness arises from heightened self-monitoring. The mind clamps down on gestures to avoid betrayal, resulting in a statue-like hold that feels unnatural up close. During explanations, denials, or high-stakes claims, the body locks after the critical words, betraying the strain of maintaining composure. Seneca advised calm endurance of externals. Here, you endure the cue without letting it provoke anger or doubt in yourself. Contrast helps. Truth-tellers move naturally, with gestures that support speech. Rigidity signals the opposite, extra vigilance that the body cannot sustain indefinitely. Stoics cultivate this contrast awareness, withholding full acceptance until alignment appears across channels. You register the freeze, note its context, and respond from reason. This observation safeguards emotional energy by highlighting when effort masks truth. You set firmer boundaries earlier, reducing later disappointment. Marcus Aurelius reflected on the transience of appearances. Rigid posture reminds you that even controlled facades eventually reveal their cracks, guiding prudent disengagement. Over time, spotting frozen posture sharpens your overall discernment, attracting more genuine exchanges while filtering out strained ones. The practice fosters the inner freedom Stoics sought, undisturbed by others' hidden tensions, focused on your own steady character. Include rigid posture checks in evening Stoic review. Ask whether you notice the cue and remained equanimous. Consistent reflection turns this subtle immobility into a powerful marker of when to trust less and protect your peace more. Number 10. Lip compression or disappearing lips. When lips press tightly together or seemingly vanish by pulling inward right after a statement, it often signals withholding or discomfort with what was just said. This micro-movement lasts seconds and betrays inner conflict the speaker tries to contain. Stoicism urges calm examination of every detail. By noting lip compression without reaction, you stay detached and focused on rational assessment rather than surface narrative. The compression serves as self-soothing or suppression. The body clamps the mouth to prevent further words or to manage rising anxiety from falsehood. In apologies, promises, or deflections, the lips disappear precisely when the claim feels most vulnerable. Epictetus taught non-precipitate judgment. This cue invites pause, preventing hasty belief in words contradicted by facial tension. Timing reveals much. The press follows the questionable phrase, holding for a beat before relaxing. Stoics prize congruence. Mismatched lip behavior becomes data that tempers trust without breeding cynicism. You observe, adjust expectations, and choose responses that preserve dignity and calm. This signal prevents the quiet resentment of unchallenged deception. You require more evidence before committing, aligning actions with virtue over illusion. Seneca's indifference to externals finds expression here. The lip cue is external, but your measured response is internal mastery. Long-term practice refines relationships, favoring those whose lips remain relaxed and open as signs of ease. The result is a life less burdened by partial truths, more aligned with clear purpose. Conclude daily reflection by noting lip compression instances and your undisturbed handling of them. This habit integrates the cue into your Stoic discipline, strengthening the shield of discernment against deception while nurturing unshakable inner serenity.